Hey folks, how we doing? We're going to throw together some little Cornish hens stuffed with a nice risotto, mushroom and caper risotto. And we're going to start off by showing you how to make the risotto. Now, before we get rolling on everything, I've got my Patriots shirt on, and this is the last time I'll wear it until next season, because we know what happened in the Super Bowl and it wasn't pretty. Before I get on a tangent, you know, Belichick is supposed to be the greatest coach ever, and he's a defensive wizard. Hello! I think the Eagles just scored again. So much for Bill Belichick's defense. Eventually, Bill, you can't keep hiring people off of bar stools. You gotta find players that can play. So get a damn defense next year. We scored more, we ran more yards in a Super Bowl than anybody ever did. Brady threw for over 500 yards, for God's sake. And you can't plug a defense to hold them under 40 points? On to the Sox. So we're going to show you now how to make a risotto. We're going to start off with sauteing some of these mushrooms. We're going to throw these on here in a little bit of olive oil just to coat the bottom of the pan. And then we're just going to let that heat up a little bit, and we're going to saute some mushrooms in there. Once we saute these mushrooms and we get them all cooked the way we want with the juices coming out of them, we're going to turn those off and we're going to set them aside until we get into the risotto itself. So we're going to saute these mushrooms, and then we're going to show you how we're going to start off on the risotto. We're going to get this one over here also. We're going to put it on a high heat. We're going to start the risotto off with some onions and a little bit of olive oil. We're going to cook these onions down. And then we're going to add some rice to that. And once we add the rice to that, we're going to let the rice brown a little. But I'm going to cook these onions off in these mushrooms, and we'll come back and I'll show you where our next step is. Okay, we got these onions sauteing a little. Now we're going to add a little bit of garlic, probably about three cloves of garlic in there. We're going to mix them in with the onions. Don't want that garlic to burn, but we're going to get it in there for the flavor. Now what we want to do is we've got about 1.5 cups of arborio rice, right from Arborio, Italy. That's where this risotto all started. We want to make sure that that rice gets a little coated with olive oil. And the reason arborio rice is good for risotto is because it absorbs well, and it also gives off a nice flavor. And just mix this in a little here to get that coated. One thing you don't want to do is you don't want to wash this rice, because the whole key to it is the starch coming out of it. Arborio gives a nice good starchy mix for us to give us that creamy texture that we want from risotto. Now this is a painstaking process if you want to make real risotto, because it takes a while and you got to keep stirring this so it everything mixes in slowly. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add, when we get that oil all coated, we're going to add about a cup of dry white wine. And we're going to cook that off until that's nice and absorbed. And that'll take a few minutes. So instead of boring you, we'll come back as soon as this is absorbed. and move on to step 2. Oh, and by the way, before we go anywhere, happy 20th anniversary to the Big Lebowski. And in honor of that, today's drink is a Big Lebowski, otherwise known as a White Russian. We'll see you in a couple minutes. All right, folks, that wine is nice and absorbed into the rice. You want to make sure you're staying by this the whole time, stirring and going, because it's going to be about a 20-minute to a half-hour process. Now that we've got that rice absorbed, over here we've got warmed about 7 or 8 cups of chicken broth. And we're going to add that slowly, about a ladle at a time, until that absorbs in there. We probably won't use the 8 cups, we'll probably use about 6 of it, but we have it there, and we will slowly add that in to give it its creamy texture as those starches from the rice start breaking down. This is a good absorbent rice, the Aberora. I would recommend any time you're going to make a risotto. And we'll keep adding that until we've got it where we need it. And then when we come back, we'll have that at a nice consistency. We'll add the mushrooms. We're also going to add some Parmesan cheese, roughly about between a third and a half a cup. And we're going to add the mushrooms back in, some capers, and then we'll be ready to stuff those little hens. Okay, folks, we got that risotto coming off the hot fire. Now we're going to add stuff into it. What we're going to do here is we're going to add these cooked mushrooms in with their juices. We're going to add a half a stick of butter, or a quarter of a cup, into that mix. We're going to add about 3 tablespoons of capers. We're going to let that butter melt just a hair, and then we're going to add the Parmesan cheese. And there, coming up, your finished risotto. All right, folks, we've got our little Cornish hens. They're about 1.5 pounds each. So once we get this all together, they're going to cook for about 1 hour and 15 minutes. And just to give you an idea, we took these, we rinsed them out, patted them dry, and put them back in the pan. Myself, my 2 brothers, my nephews, and my boys, and these 3 Cornish hens could have played better defense than the Patriots did in the Super Bowl. Because we might as well have had them on the line because we weren't stopping anything. Oh, okay. Now we're going to stuff these little babies. We're going to take that risotto and we're going to stuff them till they can't take any more. Nice and creamy. Getting all that flavor in there. Still piping hot, but we'll manage. Look at that creamy cheese in there. My goodness. I'm going to eat these chickens raw. This is going to be good. Aren't these things cute? It's almost like, oh my God, how'd they kill these poor things? Because they're so good, that's why. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take these carrots, we're going to put them around this. We're going to bake them right in there with it. Like I said, about an hour and 15 minutes and this baby should be done. Get about a pound of carrots in there. And then what we're going to do is take that leftover broth. We're going to put a little bit of that in the bottom. I'm going to run a little bit of olive oil over these little guys for some browning. A little bit of salt. A little bit of pepper. And this is a little mixture of just rosemary and thyme. Just took about a tablespoon of each and mixed them together. You don't have to use the whole thing, just enough to give it a little flavor. And there you go, folks. We're going to bake that for an hour and 15 minutes. And when we come back, our mouths will be watering and drooling because these will be all done and ready to eat. We'll see you then. Get a defense, Belichick! Okay, folks, we're back. We've got our little defensive line all cooked up and ready to go. I mean, they're beautiful. The risotto's coming out. We get the nice carrots to go with it. They're juicy, they're plump, they're ready to roll. And with the 20th anniversary of the Big Lebowski, the hens abide and the dude abides.